I'm Dottie Gallagher, President and CEO of the Buffalo Niagara Partnership, Western New York's Regional Chamber of Commerce. And I'm joined today by leaders of other chambers throughout New York to call on Congress to reauthorize an assault weapons ban. I want to thank the Business Council of New York State, the Brooklyn Chamber of Commerce, the Business Council of Westchester, and the Greater Rochester Chamber of Commerce for standing side by side with the partnership on this critical issue. I also want to thank Congressman Brian Higgins for being with us this morning, and you'll hear from him shortly. We are coming together in this way and stepping out of our traditional advocacy role in response to the racist mass shooting at Tops Supermarket in Buffalo on May 14th. During the attack, the shooter used an AR-15 to kill 10 people and injure several others. In the few short weeks since, I reached out to these groups about forming a coalition to push for a federal assault weapons ban. America has seen more mass shootings, including the Texas school shooting that left 19 students and 2 adults dead. That gunman and that murder spree also used an AR-15. The massacre in Buffalo and other events in the days since not only underscores the hate festering in some, but the irresponsible and needless access to weapons of war designed to kill as many people as possible, as quickly as possible. As representatives of employers across New York, we have a responsibility to stand up and fight for policies to keep our places of business, employees, customers, and communities safe. New York State has some of the most strict gun laws in the country, and yet that did not prevent the massacre of 10 innocent people here in Buffalo. Action on this issue must be led by Congress, and we urge our elected officials to take action. The original federal ban on assault weapons expired in 2004. Efforts to renew the ban since have then floundered under the leadership of both political parties. Meanwhile, assault weapons are increasingly the weapons of choice of mass shooters and domestic terrorists because of their lethality. According to research cited by Everytown for Gun Safety, if the United States still had a federal assault weapons ban, the country would see fewer mass shooting deaths. And the Brady Center to Prevent Gun Violence reports that 155% more people are shot in incidents where assault weapons or high capacity magazines are used. There is a proposal in Congress that would reauthorize the assault weapons ban. It would ban the sale, manufacture, transfer, and importation of 205 military-style assault weapons by name. These guns typically fire rounds up to 4 times the muzzle velocity of a standard handgun round, inflicting greater damage on the human body. We think this is common sense gun reform and a responsible step this country should take. And while gun control may not be a typical lane for chambers of commerce, there is no avoiding the impact gun violence is having on our country and in our communities. And we have an obligation to be part of solving this American problem. I now want to introduce my chamber colleagues and ask them to say a few words. First up, Heather Burketty, President and CEO of the Business Council of New York State. Welcome, Heather.
Thank you, Dottie, and thank you for your leadership on this important issue. I'm here because in many instances, mass shootings occur in the workplace. There is no reason for non-military personnel to have access to military-grade weapons that have the ability to inflict the degree of damage that these weapons do. There have been 40 mass shootings since 1966. Almost a quarter of them had an employment-related motivation. Since 1966, 30% occurred in the gunman's very own workplace. And since 1966, 52 mass shootings have occurred in private businesses, most commonly retail, restaurants, bars, and entertainment venues. The data shows that these are mainly random attacks with the gunman not knowing or seeking out a specific victim. And almost a third, or 48 of the mass shootings since 1966 have occurred with a semi-automatic gun, and another almost 20% with extended magazines. Unfortunately, having very strict gun control laws at the state level does not prevent this. We have open borders. This is something that has to be addressed at the national level. I think that it's time. We've seen a dramatic increase in the number of mass shootings in the last 20 years, and it continues to rise. If you look at the data at the Violence Project, which is a nonpartisan research focused on mass shootings, you'll see it's a steep increase in the last 2 decades. And if we don't do anything, it's going to continue. So the time to act is now. It is a business issue. It is a human issue. And it is something that action needs to be taken, or we'll continue down this path.
Thank you so much, Heather. Next up, please welcome John Ravitz, the Executive Vice President and Chief Operating Officer of the Business Council of Westchester.
Thank you, Dottie. Good morning. And I also want to echo Heather's thanks to you and your organization for bringing us together. I think it is important that the business community statewide really stand together and make sure that people understand that this does have a correlation to the day-to-day operations of businesses. You know, a few weeks ago, Peggy Noonan wrote in one of her op-ed pieces that policies must evolve to meet circumstances. Well, these circumstances continue to happen. These are not isolated incidents, and they're happening in urban and rural areas all across our country. Legislators now in Washington need to understand that, again, there is a way to begin to fix this problem by passing the legislation that has already been mentioned. And I want to thank Congressman Higgins for his leadership and other members who are sponsoring the reauthorization of the federal ban on assault weapons. We have to do more. It's that simple. And I'm asking every member of Congress to look themselves in the mirror every day before they go to work to say, am I doing all that I can to prevent these type of heinous, horrific, brutal crimes that are occurring, unfortunately, almost on a daily basis in our country? Thank you very much.
Thank you, John. And last, but certainly not least, Congressman Higgins, thank you for being with us today, and we'd love to hear from you. Brian, your sound is off. There we
Okay,
go.
thank you, Dottie, and thank you, business leaders. This is unprecedented that you would, come forward as a group representing a lot of business leaders and taking seriously this issue of gun violence. Gun violence takes 110 people, Americans, every single day. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention has stated now that the leading cause of death for kids in America, for children in America, is gun violence. The situation that Dottie spoke to, a racist act of domestic terrorism on an innocent community that did nothing to provoke this. The shooting started at 2:30. It was concluded at 2:36. 6 minutes, 13 people shot, 10 dead, 1 shooter with a assault rifle. Now, someone once told me, who is a gun violence denier, that to stop a bad guy with a gun, give a good guy a good gun. Well, one of the 10 that were killed in Buffalo was a security officer at Tops Market. He was a 30-year veteran of the Buffalo Police Department. He was a good man with a gun. He prevented others from being killed, but he was helpless against an 18-year-old with a depraved mind and a depraved heart because he had an automatic weapon. This assault weapons ban is not ideological. It's commonsensical. Today in America, we are a nation of 330 million people. There are 400 million guns, 11 million of which are assault rifles. You go back 10 years ago, Sandy Hook Elementary School in Newtown, Connecticut. There's a trend here. The shooting started at 9:35 in the morning. The shooting ended at Sandy Hook Elementary School, at 9:40. 5 minutes, 27 people dead, including the shooter that shot his mother, killed her, who purchased the gun for the kid, and 20 kids between the ages of 5 and 7. Many of those kids had 3 and 4 bullet wounds in them, again, showing the power of an assault rifle. And as Dottie had said previously, which has one purpose, and that is to kill the highest number of people as quickly as possible. There is no technology in our society today that advances more than the technology of killing. They find a way to manipulate these guns, to make them more powerful, to enhance their capacity, and they have to be taken out of the hands of individuals. When the assault weapons ban lapsed, because it had a 10-year time frame, the number of mass shootings increased by 183%. The number of mass shooting killings increased by 293%. This is not coincidental. There is a cause and effect relationship here. We have no interest in taking guns from sportsmen. These issues should not be conflated. It is very, very important for the sake of our kids, for the sake of our neighborhoods, for the sake of our nation, that we need to respond to this decisively. You talk about the erosion of democracy throughout the world and in the United States. It's the inability of government to respond to the basic needs of people. And when we see that there are 200 mass shootings in America today, in the first 6 months of this year, 200 mass shootings, 1 in 5 police officers that are killed in the line of duty are killed by an assault weapon. So it couldn't be any clearer. And this nonsense about hardening schools, about arming teachers, this is all we have. We can do something about this, and we need to do more. Yes, there's a mental health component. Yes, there is socioeconomic issues that we need to deal with. Yes, we need to invest more in communities of color, like that of Jefferson Avenue and the Tops Market. But clearly, to stop the killing, you've got to stop the killer. And to stop the killer, you got to take their weapon of choice. 11 million assault rifles in America today. I am hopeful that on Thursday, the House will vote affirmatively to support an assault on or a ban on assault weapons. The concern is that nothing can become law unless same as legislation passes in both the House and the Senate. And you already know that the Senate has a filibuster rule. It's not part of the Constitution. It's a rule that says that you need 60 votes in order to approve with a simple majority landmark legislation as it relates to this issue of gun violence and a ban on assault weapons. So my hope is that, and it should be mentioned, my colleague, Chris Jacobs, he took a principled stand on this issue because of the devastation that was exacted on our community. And 2 days later, he's not running for re-election again. What has this come to? What have we become as a nation and society? And if we can't protect our children, Congress has no useful role in, the lead legislative body in America. So thank you all for participating. Dottie, thank you for your leadership on this issue.
Thank you, Congressman. And I echo your sentiments exactly. And I think as citizens of this country, we have the right to feel like our communities are safe, that we should be able to go to the movie theater, to school, to church, to the grocery store with a reasonable expectation of safety. And I think this legislation would help prevent some of the most heinous crimes that are happening in our country today. So with that, we will open this up for some questions. For questions, we're going to use the raise your hand feature on the webinar controls. And once you click this button, we'll know that there's a question, and then just unmute yourself, state your name, ask your question, and then mute yourself after the question is completed. So we've got a few minutes for if there are any questions. Any questions out there? Matt, I see you. Just unmute yourself there, or I think maybe I can unmute you, but
yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you. Thanks.
Yeah, interested to hear, Dottie, a little more about how this initiative came together, that the business groups got together and rallied behind this legislation. Talk me through how you all came together on this.
Well, Sunday morning, I called Heather and said, what can we do? And immediately Heather said, let's work together on this. And let's get some of our colleagues together. And we both felt strongly, and Heather, I'll let you comment on this, that we needed to act very quickly while Congress is still in session with this bill that's on the floor right now to lend a new voice to this discussion, to get this out of an individual rights conversation and more to a community rights conversation. And so that's really how it started. And quite quickly, all these other partners stepped up. But Heather, you want to add anything to
Yeah,
that?
I just want to add, it was Sunday morning. It was before Uvalde that Dottie called me, and I immediately recognized that I think that this is a point in time, an inflection point where we may be able to get something done federally. It is indefensible. Before Uvalde happened, it was indefensible for them not to act. And at this point, I think they need support. So that they don't feel like they have to not run for office in order to take a principled stand on an issue like this. So I feel it's very important that we point out this is about the ability for people to be free in the workplace, to be free in their lives, to grocery shop, to go to school. And we aren't free if no action is taken.
And I would just state further that Heather and I had this conversation on Sunday morning. On Tuesday morning, we had our regularly scheduled executive committee meeting of our board, and I talked about this and my desire for us to step into this. And I have to tell you, there was 100% support around that table that it was time for the business community to speak up in this way. And Heather, you did a great job of outlining so many of the workplace violence that happens and using these kinds of weapons where so many more people are harmed than should be. So Matt, I think does that cover your question?
Yeah, and just wanted to follow up to elaborate on the point you made about adding a different voice. How do you feel the business community be influential on this? There's obviously a lot of other voices out there too, but what do you think is unique about having the business community lend its voice here?
Well, I guess maybe John and Heather, you should jump in here too. But I just feel that in our traditional advocacy work, we do a lot of economic development advocacy. We do a lot of education advocacy. We haven't, in the 10 years I've been at the partnership, ever talked at all about the gun control issues whatsoever. So I think that's fairly typical. I actually Sunday morning went and looked at the U.S. Chamber website to see if the U.S. Chamber had taken any positions around gun control and couldn't find anything there. But Heather and John, do you want to weigh into that question as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think that honestly, through the pandemic, we've seen now what a fear of violence does in getting people to go back to work. It's a different context, but it's really important getting people feeling comfortable in the workplace and in retail settings. I think it's very, very important that people feel safe. And this is something that, it's not a heavy lift to ask for an assault weapons ban at the federal level so that we don't have state by state opportunities for people to go somewhere else to, purchase something that is not legal in their state.
Yeah, I mean, after the pandemic, I think all of us realized that, we did need to be able to find a pathway for people to return to work. And it's all about creating those safe havens. We want folks, as has already been said, to feel safe coming to work. But as they're coming back to work, they sure as heck should have the knowledge that their children are safe, whether they're in school or in daycare or in their parks. Or just walking in their communities. And we're not there now as a country. And that's where, again, I think it's time for our federal legislators who aren't there yet to really ask themselves that questions, if not now, when?
Congressman Higgins, do you want to make a comment at all about the business community's voice in this conversation from your perspective?
Well, like anything else, the opponents of gun safety legislation anticipate that, once the recency effect runs off, that is, as time moves on, people will forget about this issue. So it's important that we have a lot of voices that are diverse. You represent a lot of businesses. I think, again, this is not ideological, it's commonsensical. This is a safety issue. And when 110 people are killed every day in America because of gun violence, something needs to be done. When the leading cause of death for kids in America is gun violence. Something needs to be done. When people, despite the fact that New York, as Dottie had mentioned, has a red flag law, an extreme person that poses a threat to himself or others. The Buffalo shooter had an incident last year that should have been a red flag, and he included in a 180-page manifesto mocking the process by which extreme persons, as he was, are evaluated by mental health workers. You know, he waited 45 minutes for his appointment, and the appointment lasted 15 minutes. It was an extreme action that he took that triggered this red flag review. So we just need to get these guns off the street. You know, as has been said, they're designed to kill people. You're not gonna hunt with a assault rifle.
There are a couple other raised hands, but the people are not identified by their outlet. So if you can rename yourself so we know where you're from, we'll call on you. Are there any other questions from media that are so identified on the call? Mr. Traster?
Yes, hi, it's Tina
Oh,
Trask.
Hi,
Yeah,
Tina, sorry.
okay. Hi, I'm from Rockland County Business Journal.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah, I wasn't sure how to rename myself there. Okay.
Okay.
Anyhow, so my question is, did this coalition reach out to the business community here in Rockland County? If so, did they decline to participate? And if not, why was Rockland County not reached out to?
Heather, I don't know the answer to that question.
I don't either. Sorry. I mean, I can certainly reach out. I did not reach out to him directly. And it was more about just trying to gather voices as quickly as possible. So there's no intention one way or the other.
Yeah.
Okay, but they didn't, yeah, they didn't deny the invitation.
No,
Not
we,
that I'm aware of.
we reached out to people who we work with routinely, and the Business Council really covers the entire state. And so I wanted to make sure that we had both suburban representation, urban representation, and the state as part of this sort of framework of a coalition. And quite frankly, we felt it was more important to work quickly, given where the bill is in Congress right now, than it was to be incredibly comprehensive. So I don't think there's any official no's that we got from anybody we work with routinely, but thank you for that question.
One quick follow-up.
Yes, of course.
Could you send me the opening that you read?
Yes.
But can you press people send that to me by my email so that I can accurately quote a lot of those stats that you threw out there?
Most certainly. And Tina, did you register? So we have your email in the registration?
Yes.
Okay, yes, we'll get that out to you immediately following the call. Thank you. In fact, we'll get it out to all the media people immediately following the call. Benjamin, I think you're from Lockport. You can unmute yourself, Benjamin Joe.
Yes, it's Benjamin Joe from Lockport Journal.
Welcome.
Hi, I was wondering what more the business community will be doing in the upcoming days and weeks as legislation is passing through houses, hopefully. What more can we do as residents in Niagara County to help the business community really bring this message home? Will there be more events? Will there be a campaign that businesses are going to get behind? Well, what can we do, and what will we see in the upcoming days and weeks?
Well, what our hope is that that this will begin to stimulate a discussion, and that people in the business community will then reach out to their own elected officials to make sure that they are certain that that's important to business people to do that. We have not stood up official paid campaign or anything of that nature, but in the coming weeks, as this progresses, we'll be checking in with Washington to see what else we can do to move this along. But thank you for that question. Heather, is there anything you want to? Oh, go ahead, John. No, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Yeah. I can also say that in Westchester County, we are going to be holding an event next month on, again, as was mentioned earlier, really making sure that employers have the most updated information regarding safety in the workplace. And Commissioner David Chung, the commissioner of the White Plains Police Department, will be leading that overview. And again, it's really so that businesses can understand, again, that there are things that they can do, that there is information that their employees should have to make their workplaces safe havens. And again, I think what we're hoping for is that that denial doesn't become our biggest obstacle, unfortunately. I mean, we cannot just say that it will never happen in our workplace or it won't happen in our community, because it's happening every day, every part of this country. So these type of workshops, I think, are important, and hopefully it also establishes a line of communications, or a continued line of communications, between the business community and our local law enforcement.
Thank you all very much for being with us. We're at time. I want to thank everyone who's on the call. Congressman Higgins, thank you so much for making time for us today. We genuinely appreciate it. And Heather and John, thank you for being with us. And the conversation will continue until the problem is solved. And I would imagine if it's not solved in this session of Congress, this will be a part of our regular advocacy agenda moving forward for all of us. So this is not a one and done situation. So thank you all. Any closing words, anyone, Heather or John or Congressman Higgins, anything you want to say? Okay. Thank you all. Thank you for being here.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.